Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers. We're reading through the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. We're really diving in deep to the meanings of these verses. And today we're starting chapter 10. We're starting chapter 10, which is really exciting. And I'm really excited to talk about some of these things with you today because as I was been preparing for this class this week, some of the things we're going to talk about have kind of become my meditation, and it's been really powerful for me. So I hope that it's the same for you. It becomes very powerful as some of these truths just become etched on our hearts. So before we get into it, Stella, could you say our prayers for us?
Sure. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vanchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Beautiful.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. So nice. Okay, and let's just get right into it. We'll start with the first text of chapter 10. You ready, Stella?
Yeah. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bhuya Eva Mahabaho Shrinu Me Paramam Vachaha Yateham Priyamanaya Bhaksyami Hitakamyaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I've already explained."
Thank you.
The far out verse.
Yeah, why is it far out?
Just that he explained so many beautiful things already. It's like, you mean there's more?
Yeah, and it's fun too because this chapter it doesn't start with a question from Arjuna. It's like Krishna's just starts talking. He's like almost so absorbed in speaking about bhakti that he doesn't need any prompting. And so when Krishna speaks about devotion and love, relationship, connection, he's like in his own kind of ecstasy. So it's funny you say that, it's like you're feeling his ecstasy and it's giving you ecstasy, Stella. So in this chapter, Krishna's still glorifying bhakti, but he's doing it from a new and more detailed angle. And so this chapter is really an invitation to contemplate him through his manifestations in the world. So not just in an abstract way, but in a very tangible, relatable way, so that our devotion can naturally deepen. So this chapter is called Vibhuti Yoga, the yoga of the Lord's opulences. And if we zoom out a little bit, we see how the Gita is building. So in chapter 7, Krishna gives us knowledge of the absolute. And then in chapter 9, he reveals the most confidential knowledge, bhakti, and shows us how Bhagavan is captured by love. And then in chapter 10, he's continuing the same theme, but now Krishna focuses on his greatness so that our bhakti can expand even more. And here's a relatable analogy of what's kind of happening here. So if we imagine you have a close friend that you already love really deeply, and then one day you find out that this friend also happens to be this like famous billionaire. I don't know how you didn't know that before, but you didn't know it before. You just liked the person. You're just friends. And then you're like, holy cow, you're rich and famous. This is crazy. Like you loved them before, but now you also kind of have this like you're kind of in awe. Like this is amazing. You have like an extra level of respect and for them. Knowing that they're wealthy and influential, it's not going to replace the relationship you already had, but it just deepens it. You feel like this added sense of gratitude and wonder, that someone so great is also someone who shares a personal bond with you. This, this is kind of a similar thing here. Like when a devotee understands Krishna's greatness in detail, his power, his opulence, his supremacy, their devotion doesn't just become distant or formal. It makes the gratitude just increases. The devotee feels humbled and amazed by their good fortune. Like I get to reciprocate intimately with someone so great. And so this combination, this intimacy and this awe, it really like snowballs, snowballs our relationship with God. So that's what's happening here. In chapter 9, we really learned about the intimacy of God. The understanding how sweet and intimate he is. And then in this chapter, we're really learning how great God is. And so when both are present, love is deepening. It becomes fuller and richer and and that's what Krishna's doing for us with this 10th chapter. He's highlighting his greatness, his power, his beauty, his presence everywhere. It's really kind of exciting. I'm really excited about this chapter because we just went through this beautiful progression in the last chapter where Krishna really emphasized his sweetness, how personally he relates to us, how he cares for us, how he reciprocates love. So now it's like he's sweet. We have this intimate relationship, but wow, look at how great he is too. Okay? So that's our intention here in this chapter is to really deepen that relationship through understanding how great God is. So, bringing it back to this verse, this first verse, when in Krishna says, I'll just repeat it here because I talked a little bit about the chapter as a whole, so just to kind of reorientate us and bring us back in to this verse, Krishna says, "O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend, for your benefit I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I've already explained." So right away, Krishna's intimate and he's personal. If we remember how he ended the last chapter, Krishna says, just devote yourself to me, and I guarantee you'll come back to me. Have no doubt. So now we've arrived in the 10th chapter, where again, Krishna's continuing this kind of devotional speak. And it's important to realize to see here, he's not talking like a college professor who was hired to teach a subject, deliver material and then goes home. Krishna's sharing knowledge that is very dear to him, and he's sharing it with someone who's also very dear to him. So this is not just theoretical text, this is just infused with love and intimacy. So he's explicitly saying, I'm speaking this for your benefit. And in other words, I love you. I want you to be okay. I want this to help you. This is the mood of where Krishna's speaking from. And Krishna even emphasizes that these are supreme words. These are supreme words. So what is the supreme knowledge that Krishna is talking about? It's not just information. It's not just memorizing verses, or collecting spiritual facts. No, the supreme knowledge that Krishna is talking about is supreme knowledge in knowing who Bhagavan actually is, and letting that knowledge naturally lead us into bhakti, into relationship. And when we say the word Bhagavan, I want to kind of make this point. This is a really beautiful thing about the bhakti path. When Bhagavan is a word that's describing someone who possesses six qualities in fullness. Okay, complete strength, complete fame, complete wealth, complete knowledge, complete beauty, and complete renunciation. So when we list those six qualities, we can all agree that whatever God we worship, whatever name we have for God, we believe he has all of those qualities. We know God is all encompassing. God is absolute. Of course, he's going to have complete strength, complete wealth, complete knowledge, complete renunciation, beauty, fame, all of these things. So Bhagavan, so not one religion has a monopoly on God. Not one religion has a monopoly, or one path has a monopoly on God. Right? God is available to, to people through many paths. And when we say the word Bhagavan, this is what the word means. Somebody who has these six qualities in fullness, and this is what we call this personal form of God. And the striking part here is that Krishna doesn't claim these qualities while he's present here on earth. He's demonstrates all of them. So this is why the great sages accepted him not just as a symbol, but as the supreme personality of Godhead. Because Krishna comes to earth and he demonstrates these qualities. And so great sages recognize him as the supreme personality of Godhead. And so this is why this knowledge is called topmost. Because when we really understand who Krishna is, when we really realize that, we don't have to like force devotion. We don't have to like manufacture a bhakti, to love for God. It just becomes the most natural response. Like, of course, I want to love, serve, and connect with someone like this. Again, if you think about the most opulent person however they're opulent in wealth, in beauty, in fame, however they're opulent, and then they want to have a close relationship with you. Imagine that's like, of course you want that. Of course you're gonna reciprocate. And this is God, the most opulent. I mean, all of these six opulences he possesses in full, like a million times more than the most opulent person you can think of. And he's saying, I want relationship with you. So when we can really realize that this isn't something that's just abstract or some kind of idea. No, this is real, and this is actually available to us right here, right now. And when we realize that, a relationship with God becomes just something that we want. It's not like we're going through the motions, or we're just trying to artificially manufacture it, or it's a superficial thing. No, it's a real relationship. So this is in these six chapters right in the heart, in the middle of the Gita. Krishna's giving us this knowledge, this wisdom. And what it really is this invitation into relationship. And to the degree that we see it like that and we take advantage of that invitation, yes, please, I will board that train. We will experience Krishna's magic in our life, right? And that relationship will grow. And our little bhakti creeper, it will spread roots, and hopefully even, fruit that then support others in their relationship. Because that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. We're not joining some kind of club. We're not trying to gain some knowledge so that we feel smart. We're trying to enter into relationship. We're trying to board that train. So that's the whole point of this. And then another point Krishna makes in this verse, he says, I want to tell you again. He says, I want to tell you again. And this is something else for us to just kind of take note of is that Krishna tells us again and again, and each time it deepens. What he's telling us deepens. But at the same time, some of these things we've heard before. You know? And this is like the process of spiritual wisdom. We hear it once, we hear it again. It lands somewhere deeper. It lands. It's it's our realization deepens, and in that, the more that we hear about God, the more that we become fixed in devotional service. So this is kind of part of the process, even. And love repeats. Care repeats. Because when it's really this nectar of knowledge, it's worth hearing again and again. And in the purport, I want to kind of highlight a point here that Prabhupada makes in the purport to this verse that I think is really beautiful. He says, real discourse in the society of devotees happens among those who are genuinely anxious to be in God consciousness. Genuinely anxious to be in God consciousness. Let's just like let that sink in for a moment and think about what that really means. Genuinely anxious to be in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is again word for God. And when we hear the word anxious, a lot of times we associate it with material things. Like I'm anxious about my job, my relationships, my health, my money. But here we're asked to really reflect, like how often are we anxious to be in Krishna consciousness? Like when we chant, are we anxious to hear the holy name? Or are we just reserving all of our anxiety for material outcomes, like and give very little emotional urgency to our spiritual life? So when we talk about this word anxious for our spiritual lives, we can even bring it back to this. We talked about the spectrum of consciousness, the spectrum of even like the spectrum of how we can approach God depending on our consciousness. So we have fear, desire, duty, love. So if some at the level of fear, this is the lowest level of consciousness in relationship. Someone may feel like if I'm not God conscious, then I'll stay absorbed in this material energy and then I'll just continue the cycle of birth and death. So I must be God conscious. This is like looking at your relationship with God at this low level of consciousness, level of fear. Or even, we could even relate it to the culture we live in. Like if I don't have a relationship with God, then I'll go to hell. That's why I'm practicing this, so that at the end of my life I can go somewhere so much better. Okay, it's not this isn't a bad thing. This is at the level of fear. It's a lower level of consciousness in terms of how we're approaching relationship. So then when we have a little bit higher level of consciousness in relationship, we come to this level of desire. Someone thinks, I want happiness, I want peace. Krishna consciousness gives that. So I desire it because I want some happiness, I want some peace. Not bad. We're moving up the spectrum. Still not the highest, but we're moving up the spectrum. So then when we get to this level, to the third level here, consciousness gets a little bit higher, we get to this level of duty. Someone thinks, okay, I've committed myself to this path. I've committed myself to this practice. This is my responsibility now. Still, we're making our way up. Not the highest, but we're making our way up. Fear, desire, duty. Then we land finally at this level of love. This is the topmost level. This is when our consciousness gets to the highest point in relationship. And when we love, we just don't want to forget the beloved. We're anxious, not out of fear or obligation, but because just remembering is precious. Remembering is fills our heart. This is the anxiety of a lover. This is the anxiety of a lover in high consciousness. So Prabhupada tells us when devotees gather who are truly anxious in this way, the mutual enlightenment, the upliftment, the joy that arises is on an entirely different level. It's on an entirely different level. And others can certainly come and benefit, but the depth of Krishna consciousness that manifests depends on that shared eagerness. So here in text 10:1, we see that Krishna himself is anxious. He's anxious that his devotee and ultimately all souls don't get lost, don't make the wrong choices, don't miss what actually matters. So this is what he's saying. Listen again. This is for your benefit. And that's when he tells us, this is most confidential. So in the next verses, we're going to hear what Krishna is so eager for us to hear. And that's how the chapter begins to unfold here. But this is really beautiful. I like going through this spectrum of consciousness in relationship, especially relationship with God, because we can kind of see even, where we are and where we want to go. This love's a spectrum, this relationship is a spectrum. Are we approaching God out of fear? Are we approaching God out of desire, duty, right? Or just this selfless love? And bhakti will take us there. Bhakti will bring us up this spectrum to this place of approaching God just with love in our hearts. That's a goal of bhakti. And this is the map that's kind of laid out for us. And Krishna's already there. Krishna's there. He's approaching us with just love. He just wants this just for us. He needs nothing for himself. So now we need to get there. We need to meet Krishna where he's at. And this is the guidebook teaching us how to do that. And this is why we're here. Okay, before we move on to the next verse, does anybody want to share anything? Stella, Kalachandri? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Kay has something to say.
Oh, wonderful.
Uh, as soon as you started this, I had tears rolling in my eyes because I can relate to this so much. I mean, we have all been through this fear, desire, duty, love. I mean, we haven't been there yet, but fear, desire, and duty, yes. The spectrum, it is so relatable. Oh, I have to pray. Oh, I have to pray. And then comes slowly and gradually, now we have come to the station where we can say, okay, we want to do this for Krishna. We want to do this for his pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
that, and then I was little emotional because, he is so great. And yet he is coming to us and trying to approach us. And it's not even, important for him. It is important for us. And yet we are anxious about all the material subjects, all the other things, that those things come to the mind all the time, instead of connecting with Krishna, that I call him the master planner, because no matter what we plan, eventually what happens, and then I talk to him, yeah, you're the one who did it. You're the master planner.
Yes.
That's all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for those reflections. Yeah, I wish I would have had that roadmap of consciousness when I was in my 20s dating in relationships. It would have been much easier to identify like, okay, this isn't a healthy situation, or, this is kind of a low place, or this is what's actually healthy. Even just like recognizing, when we're doing things out of fear, when we're doing things out of desire, when we're doing things out of duty. Sometimes we think doing things out of duty is bad, but actually it's a stepping stone. When you're in a marriage, you're in a relationship, you have a duty. It doesn't always feel exciting, and like culture tries to push on us. Sometimes it just feels like a duty, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a stepping stone, and know that if you keep doing your duty, you will arrive at that place of love, especially in relationship to God. You'll arrive in the relationship of love. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
yeah, Kalachandji.
Yeah, I had something to say, but I really like what you just said, I think it's just really true. And Stella said this before. Just doing helps us lead to doing with love. But everything before, like that's what I love most about Krishna consciousness. It is really about love. And, without being negative in any way. That's what I find more in Krishna consciousness or in a fuller way than I do in any other faith tradition. And we've been part of more than one. And we have so much information. We not descriptions, and I mean we have a way to fall in love, which I think is very difficult when God is a concept and not a person who we know loves us. So, yeah, thanks. I mean, it's just like the best thing about Christian consciousness. I mean, we really are like the love religion, whatever one's definition of religion is, like that. So, yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Beautiful share. Thank you, Kalachandji. Okay, should we move on to the next verse? Right. The second verse of text or chapter 10 is where we are. Whenever you're ready, Stella.
Name vidhu sura ganaha prabhavan namahastayaha aham adir hi devanam mahashrinam chas sarvashaha. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulence, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages.
Thank you. Okay, so what Krishna is essentially saying here is that even the most exalted beings don't fully know me. And if we think about who he's talking about, he says the demigods. The demigods are exalted in terms of power. They manage the universal systems. They can do things far beyond human capacity. And then the great sages, they're exalted in terms of knowledge and renunciation and deep realization. And these are beings who've given up the world and dedicated their lives to truth. And Krishna is saying even these people don't fully know my origin. Why? Because Krishna comes before them. He's not one powerful being among many. He's the cause of all causes. And this is a really important point. Krishna is not just saying, I'm greater. He's revealing something deeper. He's saying, no one knows me completely by their own power, because I am the source from which all power and knowledge comes from. And this is one of the way that the Gita is, this is one of the ways that the Gita establishes Krishna as the original person. Because even beings who are considered powerful, exalted, worshipable in this world are not comparable to him. So again, the most powerful being you can think of, it's not even comparable to Krishna. And we see this theme again and again, in the Bhagavatam, even highly elevated figures like Brahma, Indra, become bewildered by Krishna. So Prabhupada takes this verse and he clarifies something really important. He explains that the conceptions of God as a ruling power or as just like an impersonal light can be reached by those who are still situated within the inferior energy. But the personality of Godhead cannot be conceived unless one rises to this transcendental position. And what does this mean in practical terms? Let's break this down even more. If we think about it across cultures and religions, all cultures and religions, there's two very common ways that people conceive of God. God is a controller, the overseer of the universe, the one who governs and intervenes. And then God as this all-pervading spiritual presence, the infinite reality into which ultimately everyone merges. And we can correspond these two perspectives of God to what we call the Paramatma and the Brahman realizations. So God in the heart is super soul, and then Brahman, God is the effulgent life. So even in traditions where God is described as a person, his personality is often vague. His power is emphasized much more than his personal attributes. This is another beautiful thing. Kalachandra was sharing, why he loves the Bhakti tradition. Another beautiful thing about the Bhakti tradition is more than any other tradition, there are so many descriptions of God on a very personal level. And other scriptures, it can be a little bit vague. And it's more a demonstration of God's power. Like if like an example in the Old Testament, when God rescues the Jewish people, he appears through extraordinary acts of power. Moses doesn't see God walking towards him. He sees this burning bush that keeps burning without being consumed. So in this, God is experienced primarily as a power, not as like a visible, relatable person. We're never really told what God looks like. So what Prabhupada's point is here is that if we rely only on our own reasoning, or philosophical effort, we might arrive at God as a ruler or an impersonal spiritual force. But we will not arrive at the personality of Godhead. We will not arrive at the personality of Godhead just by thinking it through. We won't come to Krishna, what scriptures describe as Krishna, this bluish black complexion, the peacock feather, the flute playing cowherd boy. We are not going to arrive at that just by thinking harder. This level of knowledge requires mercy. It requires Krishna revealing himself through his devotees, through scripture, through the process of bhakti yoga. And to be able to receive that revelation, one has to rise to this transcendental platform, beyond speculation and ego. Transcendental platform is above this material energy. We may arrive at these conceptions of God just within this material energy through the conceptions of God that he's the controller and he's everywhere. We may arrive there, but this transcendental position of the personality of Godhead as Krishna, we cannot do on our own. We won't arrive at on our own. It requires a level of mercy. And when Krishna reveals himself fully, not just as a power, but as a person, what we encounter is not domination, but relationship. And this leads us to another really beautiful and often overlooked feature of Bhakti tradition, is that it completely rejects the idea that the divine is somehow male only. The divine is somehow male only. It completely rejects this. Because in Bhakti, God is revealed as a divine couple. This is also just, it's so beautiful, with both aspects fully sharing the same divine nature. Together, they exchange pure spiritual love. And then that loving exchange becomes the original source of everything we recognize as love, beauty, joy, compassion in this world. It's born from that relationship. So you could say that the one becomes two, not out of lack, but out of love. This could be even hard for us to conceive because we are always feeling lack. Right? We're always feeling lack in this material energy. Even when two becomes one, a lot of times it's because I need somebody to complete me. Right? Or this person balances me out. Not bad, but just imagine two becomes one, or one becomes two, not out of lack, but out of love. It's like just the highest definition of love. It's like our gold standard. And love requires relationship. So the bhakti conception of God has a masculine part and a feminine. And these masculine and feminine principles, they're not competing. They're inseparable. They're inseparable. And we can understand this through the power of like the sun and its rays. The sun is the source of power. This is like the masculine energy, like the Shaktiman. And the sunlight is that power in action. That's the feminine aspect. You can't separate one from the other. and neither makes sense on its own. So in the bhakti tradition, the feminine aspect of the divine especially embodies grace. Especially embodies grace, the feminine aspect. So grace shows up as compassion, forgiveness, tenderness, nourishment of souls who are struggling. It's gentle, but it's not weak. In fact, it's immensely powerful. So powerful that it just willingly descends from the divine realm into this world by God's own choice. This is the feminine aspect. When we think about this world, it's shaped by illusion, by restlessness, by this insatiable desire for self-gain. Grace intervenes. Grace forgives our transgressions. It compensates for our shortcomings. Ultimately, it awakens our spiritual potential. So this grace, divine motherly grace, it blesses us with gifts that would otherwise be far beyond our reach. So bhakti practices are meant to reconnect us to that current of grace and to remind us that we're meant to live through relationship, not domination. Not domination. And this raises an uncomfortable but important question. Why under the banner of religion is this nourishing, compassionate side of God so often pushed aside? Why does faith so frequently become tangled up with power, control, conquest, or fear? So the Bhakti tradition is offering a corrective. It's teaching us to honor both the strength, the masculine side, and the tenderness of the divine, to hold this power and compassion together. And when we do that, we learn how to honor humanity and life and nature itself in a more balanced and life-giving way. So this is the significance of this feminine and masculine energy together. And this is the conception of God. There's a feminine and masculine energy together. And their love for each other, their love becomes the reflection of love that we see in this world. So we talked a lot in this verse about the conceptions of bhakti and even kind of what differentiates it from other paths. But ultimately, what it's all trying to bring us back to is it's just to help us develop love for God. And we're like little babies. We're like little babies. And this path, this bhakti yoga path, is designed to bring us back into relationship with God. Because that's our real home. Not out of love, or not out of fear, out of desire, out of duty, but out of love. And that's where Krishna's bringing us with these verses, with the Gita. So that's actually all that I have today, which there was quite a lot there. So let's maybe discuss it a little and make it land a little bit deeper for you all. Stella, please share.
Oh, that was super. I mean, you are on fire today. That was amazing and good news and beautifully explained and so nourishing. Thank you. When you ask the question, like, why does, these religions always try to, they always sort of go toward dominion, is because they put themselves at the center, because so they have power. It's a real mark of them not actually putting God at the center. When you see, I mean, there's even a very strong sect in like America today called dominionism. Like they want to have dominion. They want to be dominating, so patriarchal, so putting themselves at the center. Um, yeah, that's beautifully explained. And that is one of the things I love about bhakti too, is that you can, the feminine is actually so honored and so woven into everything. It's just beautiful because you don't want to get rid of either side. And that's
You
gorgeous.
don't see Krishna alone on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Krishna's not alone on the altar. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Also, in Christianity, we have Jesus Christ. We have the Son of God, and he can be not just the recipient. It's reciprocation of our love. But even with and not to get like too deep into the theology, even though it's a holy trinity, and they're all simultaneously one and different. Um, um, Jesus is the Son of God. He is part of, but is not God the Father. And we have no information about God the Father, and certainly not those descriptions that of Radha Krishna that are so lovable. So I think we do have that, but it doesn't reach all the way to God the Father in the same way. And the way we can turn to Jesus, we have I think differently, but we approach, as I understand, we approach Srimati Radharani to bring us to Krishna, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's really at her feet, that is our rightful place. And any service we can do for her, we are doing for him, and any service we are doing for the devotees, we are doing for her. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Can you explain a little bit more, Kalachandji, why it is that we approach the devotees to approach Radharani, the feminine aspect of God, and then we approach Radharani to approach Krishna, the masculine?
Well, I don't. So there are so many reasons, but because it pleases Krishna. I think that's the bottom line. Krishna, we almost not opposite, but so different from that conception of God as controlling and how you put it. Actually, it's we who control the Lord by our love. And
Mm-hmm.
if all we want to do is to please him, I think the greatest pleasure that I'm able to imagine for him and accomplish in some very small way is to serve the devotees, if that answers.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalachandji.
But even Jesus said, there's one point he says, I feel like the mother hen wanting to gather her chicks under her wing, which, was a nice feminine aspect of Jesus that
Mm-hmm.
that we have to, pick up when you're a Jesus Bhakti. You have to pick up these little feminine things, from him too. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's rather. Is it easier to approach the woman? Probably yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So beautiful. Thank you both. Aaron.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I guess I'm curious, like, what advice you would give. Like, I feel like when I think about Krishna in this way and like all his opulences, like, I can't even use that word, opulences, like it starts to, maybe feel like like a little less approachable or a little like um I don't know, like yes, I hear that everything's all about relationship and it's like, but I don't even have relationships with like famous, people on this material realm. And what to speak of like, exponentially more opulent. I don't know. I feel like um, even with like a lot of our scriptures, when a lot is talking about like how beautiful and opulent things are, and the jewels and the, you know, all the gems and all the precious stones and like all of that description, and I'm just like, I don't know, I think because I just in this body and in this identity like have a preference for like minimalism and like, you know, I just have my own like kind of preferences that I'm sure I'm applying here, but I don't know, I just like in my mind, like God isn't so um bejeweled, to be honest, like, but then you see all these descriptions where it's like, right, like the conch, the helmet, the stones, the everything, and it's like, well, that like, yeah, I don't know, it makes it feel like a like hard to get into a relationship with something that's so beyond
Hmm.
my understanding.
Yeah. This is why Krishna puts chapter 9 before chapter 10, because he invites us into this super intimate relationship. And then it's like, oh, by the way, I'm incredibly opulent. But at this point, we're already in. You're already in relationship. So, but it's like, wow, it just deepens it. Just like what we said at the beginning of class, it is available for us. It's this relationship is sweet and intimate and you know, and we can think of Krishna as a simple cowherd boy. But then when we get to the 10th chapter, it's like, wow, he's actually pretty great too. And that just deepens the relationship. But if it's intimidating for you, or if it's creating some kind of block, I would just recommend focusing on the intimate, sweet. You know, that's that's what Krishna's really after. He's really after just that intimate, sweet relationship. And that's what bhakti is.
I
But if you had a
appreciate, oh,
yeah, if you had a friend that you were just like great friends with, and then you found out that, like their dad is their mom is the Queen of England, wouldn't you be like, whoa, that's pretty cool, and that person wants to be my friend? That's pretty cool, right? You would think that, right?
I mean, you're describing like half the Hallmark movies I've ever seen, but yes.
Yeah. So that is pretty cool. That's what's happening here. It's like you already have this incredible relationship available for you. You're in it, and then you're like, oh wow, okay, that's pretty cool. He wants to be my friend. Somebody this opulent wants to be this close to me. Yeah, we all want to be in a Hallmark movie, right? That's why there's Hallmark movies. They make us feel good. Yeah.
Really making it relatable for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, just
But
think of your favorite Hallmark movie.
but I really appreciate like the permission to focus on like what um like lands or like the aspect that like speaks to you the most, just because like, yeah, I feel like it's good to know about the opulences, right? And it's like good to hear about this and everything, of course. Um, but yeah, I guess instead of like that it being a turnoff or it being a block, just being like, yes, that's nice, but I'm gonna focus over here. I really appreciate that advice. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hare
I love
Hare
Aaron's
Krishna,
questions.
Krishna book. Also, isn't that part of why Srila Prabhupada gave us Krishna book? That we don't even have to, you know, instead of having to go all the way through the chapters of Bhagavatam, this was something early that we could go right to, and it's just so endearing and so beautiful. And it's not about opulence; it's about, like, I don't know, cuteness and
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 dust.
and so much like that. So anyway, that really helped me in this kind of a way for sure.
Yeah, and he wrote it before. Do you know when exactly he wrote it? He wrote it like much before he was even close to the 10th canto where Krishna
Oh
book actually
yeah,
is,
yeah,
right?
yes.
Yeah, because he wanted it available for everybody before. Yeah, thank you. Erin, you have another question for us?
I do have another question, and it's
Great.
super basic, but because we were talking about the feminine and masculine aspects, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the internal pleasure potency means, because I get all of those words individually, and now I feel like I've read it so many times that I'm just like, feel like I'm not quite sure. I just have like accepted it, but without really understanding exactly what that even means.
Yeah. I don't think that's a basic question, actually. I don't think that's a basic question. And actually, I'm going to refer to Kalachandji. Kalachandji, do you have a simple explanation for Erin on this one?
Internal pleasure potency.
Oh boy, I don't know that I do. Why don't you talk if I can add anything?
Okay. I mean, Krishna's it's internal pleasure potency is Radha is giving pleasure to Krishna, just like what Kalachandji was even saying, and what I really want to focus on here is this internal is this feminine aspect of God that is, Radha is part of Krishna. Radha is like Krishna, Radha comes from Krishna out of love, not out of lack, just to give him pleasure. Just to give him pleasure. That's it. And not because he lacks anything, but just because that experience, just because that merging of Radha and Krishna, you know, it's love. She's not a separate being, competing with Krishna, but she's the personification of his own capacity to experience love, joy, and bliss. It's like Krishna's already full of bliss, but love requires exchange. So this internal pleasure energy manifests as Radharani, allowing this divine love to be tasted, to be shared, to be intensified. So through her, Krishna experiences the highest joy. And through her mercy, again, this is the feminine aspect. I really want us to walk away with really understanding what the feminine aspect of God is here. This compassion, this softness, this grace. Through her mercy, living beings gain access to that same current of divine happiness. So in this way, Radharani represents the heart of bhakti itself. It's pure love, grace, devotion in its most complete form. It's really hard for us to relate to because it's like love without lack. What does that even mean? It's because he's full in himself. He's complete. He doesn't need anything. He's full of bliss. He doesn't need anything, anyone. But love requires exchange. Love requires exchange. So his internal pleasure energy manifests as as Radharani, just for his pleasure. Is this clicking at all? It's 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 really difficult for us to relate to, and it's one of those things we have to kind of pray about
Mm,
so that the revelation is revealed to us. And
hmm
as we get out of our own material conditioning, it will be easier for us to assimilate. I don't want to say understand because it's so far out of our realm of understanding. But if we pray for that revelation, it will come slowly. But we should just understand that it is the highest, highest, highest gold standard of love.
hmm I think what has confused me is like just mistakenly thinking that that means his pleasure is no longer in him, like his
Mm,
internal, like that energy, as you said it so beautifully, like the personification of his pleasure is then like taken from him. And I understand that in the only minimal basic way that I can, that that's not how God works, right? Like that he's absolute and nothing can be like, taken from him as he creates and manifests. And and all of that. But so I think I'm like, but if he doesn't have the pleasure, then it's all in Radharani, right? Like, I think that's where I have been confused.
Yeah, no, Krishna is complete. Krishna is complete. But yeah, the personification of his own capacity to experience love is is his internal potency, is Radharani. Because love requires exchange. It's the ultimate love story. I mean, Hallmark's got nothing on this. It's like the ultimate love story. And it's so high that again, if our consciousness, depending on where our consciousness is, it's even further and further from our reach, which is why we want to try to raise our consciousness so that we can get to the place where we have larger capacity to understand some of these topics. Because if we can taste them even just a little bit, that is like all of the joy, all of the fulfillment, all of the happiness, like just a tiny little morsel if we could taste. It's like that's all we need in this world. We don't have to keep searching. And that's the practice of bhakti. It's a nice question. And I'd say just keep, I think every time you discuss these things, every time you hear these things, it'll land deeper and deeper in your heart because you're doing the work. I can see you're doing the work. You're doing the work to raise your level of consciousness, to increase your capacity for your level of understanding for these high topics.
There's a nice comment in the chat too from
Oh, nice. Do you want to read it for us?
oh it's from
Yeah, I was trying to
yeah,
means
please you
Osanta.
read it
Yeah,
yourself, sir.
yeah. So rather, while you explaining, I was trying to read something on the Google. The Google says so. Radha is described as Krishna's Aladini Sakti. Because I'm trying to understand because I'm a bilingual, like multilingual. What my mom used to tell me when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, right, when you trust someone, believe someone. Means I'm not good at it, but I'm trying to recall my grandma, my mom used to tell me when I was little. When you trust, when you believe someone, you feel that energy inside you. Like you feel that, okay, very confident. Shakti is kind of that energy, that strongness inside you. So, uh, so Krishna, so is internal pressure energy? So that means this means she's not separate from Krishna, but the very power by which he experiences joy, love, and bliss. The very power by which so it means that Radha is not a separate. What I understand is she's part of Krishna. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that maybe
Yes.
it's hard to explain, but I can imagine what it says. It's technically Krishna's joy, love, everything. It's not a physical thing. It's more of a, right? Uh, when you love someone with selfless, like not behind the ego, with devotion, love, so you feel that confident energy. So it's like that kind of pleasure he gets internally. So that's what Radha means. So that's what I don't know if I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain, but I understood in that way.
Yes.
So technically,
Beautiful. Perfect. There.
Radha is energy. For example, if people for us when we need emotional support, there is one form of emotional support, right? Some people have cat, some people have some person. So it's kind of that kind of a Shakti frame. Radha is like, okay, it's kind of an energy booster. So probably that's what it's Shakti, that word it says. It's a Sanskrit, I believe. Aladini Shakti means it's, I don't know what exactly Shakti means. It's kind of a strong power inside him.
Yeah. So Shakti
Mm,
is the feminine energy.
mm,
Yeah, and we talked about the analogy of the sun and the rays. So the
mm.
sun is the source of power. The sunlight is that power in action. So you can't separate one from another, and neither makes
Yes,
sense on its own. But we do have to understand too that the feminine aspect came from the masculine aspect. It came from the masculine aspect, but you can't separate the other, and they don't make sense on their own. And that sunlight, that is the feminine aspect of divinity. That embodies grace, compassion, forgiveness, tenderness. This is that internal potency that gives pleasure to Krishna. But it comes from him. It's really, yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
There's a little, I know we're going over time, but there's a little, it just reminded me of Adam and Eve, where Eve came out of Adam's,
Mm,
from his rib. It's almost like a little shadow thing of that higher truth.
yes. Yeah, there's so many parallels.
I just wanted to say everything that you said about Radharani and in response to Aaron was, I thought, perfect and complete and beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalachandji. Anything from UK?
No, I want to take up any time, but it was so beautiful. And even though I was born and raised in India, we never heard about Radharani's grace and compassion and all that. And so many millions of people over there also have not heard. So it was so nice. I mean, we heard about it after coming into the spiritual path, but today's lecture was so in detail and so enlightening, and it is so nice now to feel that okay, I'm going to sit and contemplate on Srimati Radharani, because she is the motherly love, seeing our shortcomings, still she's going to love us, forgive us. So very beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yes, beautiful meditation. Thank you. Thank you, Kay. And thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming and sharing and walking this journey together. I'll see you all on Monday.
And at the retreat,